Hi, I'm Nan Simonson. I want to welcome you to my garden. I have a series of garden-related videos. I'm a master gardener, actually. In 97 became a certified master gardener through the California Cooperative Extension Program, year-long program. And I put in so many volunteer hours as a master gardener, well over 1,000, that they made me a lifetime member. I'm not an active master gardener now, but I'm an honorary lifetime member. I also designed gardens commercially for 15 years under my own company, Nanscape. So today I wanted to show you what I'm doing. I figured, well, share the information. We've been gone, my husband and I, for more than 10 days. We were out of the country. We were in the French Polynesian Islands. And the garden had been on a garden tour about a month ago now. There's a video that I shot prior to the garden tour showing the garden then. That's worth seeing. And we came back. It's been quite a while since then. And the garden has grown exponentially. Why? Well, because it's been raining a lot in Southern California, everything is growing as fast as it can. We're used to anywhere from 9 to 15 inches of rain a year. That's called a Mediterranean climate. Hot, dry summers, moderate winters with the rainfall primarily during that time. So what you're going to see today isn't necessarily what you're going to see in your garden, but keeping that in mind, I did my best to teach general lessons while I was taking care of my own garden. There was so much more I could have done, but I did a few plants that I thought might be representative, might be helpful, and I taught as I went. Now, how did I video while I'm working? I have a selfie stick that I put my phone on, and I propped it down through here, and it was stable right here on my chest. So when I remembered to bend down enough or stand up enough to show you what I was doing, you get a pretty good shot. There are a couple of things. For example, I deadheaded, that means took all the flowers off of this spent kalanchoe. I called it a sedum. That's what a lot of people call succulent plants, but it's a kalanchoe loaded with blossoms, but they were spent and faded. Took them off, showed how I have it in this pot where I can put it anywhere in the yard and easily water it, and because it's water-wise, it works really well. So I wanted to clarify that. But what I realized is while I was shooting it, because I looked at again these segments that I put together into a longer video, I realized that I hadn't shown the pot and you didn't get a good enough view of my cutting back the flowers. So I wanted to get back to that. So I'm going to be taking you to my front yard. I'm going to work on a few things there. And then I'll bring you back to this yard, work on a few things there while I'm explaining some basic gardening principles. There are hundreds more, thousands of other principles that could be taught, but you may find this interesting. So if you join me, and I hope you do, you will see what I'm doing on the video and then some photos at the end, some stills of what I had done. All right, be back to you right now. I'm trying to turn this off with my clicker and it's not working. Come on, clicker, goodbye. Okay, I am in my front yard, and in my last video that took you on a tour, you might be able to see how much it's grown. The garden has grown in this, I guess it's been about a month and a half. Everything is full. Everything is in bloom, and some things have faded. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm walking back to a trash can, is you can see how this lavender has faded. Well, I'll go to another one and use that as an example, because I can pass by my irises, and I'm going to cut off down at the bottom this iris that has already bloomed several times and is faded. When I get to the rosemary, I'm going to, this is just what I do, I just grab it and cut, because I want to get a little deeper in than just the flowers. I'm going to sacrifice these few. And I'm going to do that all over because it's mainly, maybe not this part, but well, actually, yes, most of it. When you cut lavender back, you can't cut it too far back or it will not regrow. It goes into shock. But you can cut it back about a quarter to a half. I'm not going to go that far deep in. But by doing this, I'll get another complete flush of flowers. This one is Lavendula stoichis, as evidenced by the rabbit ears. That's a Spanish lavender. There's Lavendula angustifolia, which is English lavender. Lavendula, the French lavender is, it's funny because it was on the tip of my tongue and then it went away. I'll remember maybe, but the French lavender does not have the little ears, and every one of them is scented slightly differently. So I'm going to go through and cut back my lavender. I'm also going to reduce the girth, the width of some plants. For example, this is a California native. It's called Salvia clevelandii, and it's doing what it would do in the chaparral, California chaparral, and that is it's growing wide. Well, the wider it gets, the more it falls apart. You can see that right there in the middle. And so to prevent that, but also so as not to have it crowd my garden, I had the option of planting this and having nothing within 6 or 7 feet of it. But you can see that I like a richly full garden, and I'm willing to put in the time to work on that. So what I'm going to do is reach in and just grab these lower branches. You can see its mother branches down there. This plant is not only richly scented, but quite an attractant for certain birds, certain insects, because it is, again, a California native plant. And by doing this, it will cause it to, and most plants to, grow more dense inside. It sends its energy instead of to the terminal buds. Oh, dentata, that's what the French is. Lavendula dentata, and that's your French lavender. Anyway, it, rather than sending energy to the terminal buds, which are the end of a shoot, it allows energy to go to the, I'll say the branches that are left, and to send out sprouts, sprouts that will then create new branches and new growth. So I'm not going to do the whole thing, but I'm going to do this all the way around to reduce its size. I'll just show you one more thing, because you'll see why I want to do this. I'm enveloped in this amazing sage fragrance. If you've ever walked the hills of California, some of you in the Midwest are saying, Nan, I have no idea what you're talking about, or more so in the northern latitudes, because we are a Mediterranean climate here in Southern California, in my area, Riverside, California, between LA, Los Angeles, and Palm Springs. And being Mediterranean, hi neighbors, being Mediterranean, it is It's dry summers, reduced rainfall, even in the winter, down to what amounts to, at least in our area, 11 to 15 inches a year. Okay. So the point is that if you walk the hills of California, you would recognize this smell. It is so intense. Do you see what I've just done? Has it hurt the plant? No, actually it's given it more energy in the branches that it has. Now, some people, again, would have planted this in a more natural way, in that they would have planted it to allow it to expand to as wide as it wants to be. I planted this, I started to say, let me think, about 4 years ago. And what will happen quite often in the wild is that a plant will grow and grow and grow, end up breaking up, falling over, breaking up, and then offshoots of it will come up in the ground around it from seed. You may see that I also have to do this side because it is growing into a part of the driveway. So that's part of what it looks like to clean up the garden. If I show you a more refined plant, one that many of you may have in your own garden, I can take you to my roses. In the garden tour that you saw, this was an explosion of white. And sometimes this rose, called iceberg, will fade to pink, which isn't typical, but it will do that. But you can see that at this point, the iceberg has, it came on as a full flush. It stayed vibrantly white and kept blooming at the end for, a month and a half, but it's had. So I want to show you something. Deep here, I have a new branch emerging. Cutting it back to that branch will energize that branch and give me some beautiful flowers. The thing is, that's still too far out. I want to cut it further back. Here's another such branch that has come up. Now, preferably, instead of cutting it back to a branch that is upward facing, to cut it to a branch that is outward facing. Let me see if I can find one that I'm referring to. Well, I can't, because it's just going to where the sun is. Like this one is more, well, I'll say outward facing. In other words, if I were cutting roses, I'm going to cut them, as I am. These are 5-finger leaves. I cut back preferably to a 5-finger leaf, not a 3. And you can see this. Here's a 3-finger leaf. Here's a 5-finger leaf. And I cut back. I want to bring this back by about a foot and a half, so that when it explodes again, which it will, it's going to, because all these rose seed heads will be gone. It won't be putting energy into that. It will explode in white, but not be 8 foot tall, which is sort of it's not designed to be an 8-foot rose. It's really more like a 4 to 5 foot rose. But the taller it gets, the weaker it'll get. So I could even bring this branch down to a bud way inside, preferably outward facing, not facing down. For example, this one here. No, this would do. It's still what I'm trying to say is that at the point that I've cut it, it's going to send out a branch. In this case, it will send that branch down. If I cut the leaf below it, it would send that branch up. Do you have to spend that much time and that much attention when you've got this much work to do? Not really, but what I tend to do is I'll slide my cutters, my loppers, well, these aren't loppers, but I'll send my extend my cutters down until I hit a leaf branch about where I want it to be. See that it's a 5-noder. Aim for the ones that are upward facing, or at least side facing in the direction I want to go. And I've done the job. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but that's the general knowledge behind cutting back roses, which at the end of the season we do all the way down, in most cases, to just a couple of feet above the ground. Can you see the difference here? I'm getting rid of the dead buds and I'm cleaning up what I have here. Okay, another example of cutting back is this plant here. This is Salvia leucantha, and I'm referring to things that many of you don't have if you're not in my kind of climate, but plants that could be similar in your climate would still have the same general recommendations. So this Salvia leucantha is growing not from the side of the fence that is visible. It's growing from behind the fence, but it's coming through the fence because it's coming for the light, and this is east facing. I don't mind the ones going up, but coming forward, it's a problem. So I'm simply going to go down and cut way back these stems that are coming through the fence and going wide rather than high. And you'll see very quickly how with just a couple of cuts, I can change this. And you may say, wow, that's a lot of work. Actually, I consider that physical. The physical, there's a physical benefit to that. I love the exercise, the bending, the twisting, the arm strength. Okay. And see what I've done. I can get a rake and rake this all up. I don't try to have what I call clean soil. I'm not going for raked soil because I want the elements that are there to break down, and that's how I fertilize. I don't fertilize. I'm going to turn this off for a minute. I'm across from a area where they're mowing. Another plant that needs to be, we call it deadheading. This is a dead flower, is geraniums. And they can simply be loosened by hand. You don't have to cut them. I just put my hand down to where they originate, and I'm able to cut them back just by snapping them at their origins. But you can see how much nicer it looks when these are cleaned up, and what you have then is fresh flowers. So I'll go through this and do it, and you may think, oh my gosh, but you have to do that constantly. Not really. It's easy enough to do. Again, this hasn't been done for 3 or 4 weeks. It's gone through a full flush of flower, and so we're getting kind of a full flush of deadheads. As it goes through the season, you get a more intermittent mix of the flowers that are dying or have died and the others. Okay, here is an example of extending blooming time. This is valerian, red valerians, and Tranthus ruber. And just reaching in to these spent heads, it sort of infused itself into another plant, this Justicia plant, but that's fine. I'm reaching in, I'm cutting it back, and you can see how the heads have already gone to seed. That's one of the reasons Centranthus rubra is everywhere because it self-sows, but I'm okay with that. I like it. Some don't. They don't even let it get established in their garden. But by doing this, I'm making the area more attractive, leaving the ones that are in bloom. And what's going to happen is we're going to get new bloom on the ends of these stalks. And so instead of wearing it out and having it stop blooming altogether, I'm encouraging it to continue to bloom for maybe another couple of months. I'll do just a couple more of these. You'll see how it can go very fast, sort of an inexact science. Oops, what do I have here? I have, see, I should pull it out. Let's see if I can. Nah, I didn't. I had a tree sapling starting from seeds in the ground of something. Okay, I'm just going to leave it like that. I'm going to go into, I'll show you one more rose because I think this one is easier to see what I was talking about. This entire rose bush has gone to seed. I want to cut it back. I'm cutting it preferably an end right above a 5-leaf. Why not right in the middle? Because then I'll have a dead stem there. It again shoots up a new branch just above where it's been cut. I'm cutting them either forward or slightly sideways, or at least I'm looking for the, example, this 5-leaf segment would grow back into the plant. That's not what I want. I'll take this one. It will grow back out. And I'll do a few more of these and then I'll come back. And you can see, and I could have done this as low as I wanted. I could have left it high, but the higher it gets, the more gangly it would get. I'll just show you where I ended with this one. Cut it back, getting rid of some of the rusted leaves. That just means they have this speckle. Some people spray. I don't use fertilizer except on my citrus and not even as often as they recommend. I let the soil feed them. And I don't use the sprays on the roses. So my roses are not show quality because they will have some of the rusted leaves. Here's some more Centranthus. I'll get to that some other time. But I'm going to take you into the backyard. I'll remind you that this year our property was on the Riverside Garden Tour, have featured a garden. And all right, let's go back to the back. Oh, well, here's something I can clean up a little and show you, and that is the calla lily. Simply pulling out the stem of a dead one, just a quick yank so you don't pull out the whole plant. And I wish this were in bloom for the garden tour. What I have here, I don't like that leaf, it's browned. What I have here is the end of the blooming of a rhododendron. Now, I live in Southern California. We don't do rhododendrons, but this little spot is acidic enough because it's shady and it stays more moist. It's in this northeast corner of the house under shade, and this was magnificent when it was in full bloom. And again, this is one of my prized plants because it shouldn't be able to do what it's doing now, but it's fading and I'll let it go before I cut it back. Okay, I'm walking into the backyard. This is, a month in since the last video of my garden. We came back from our 10-day trip and I picked the sugar snap peas. I haven't used the tomatoes that have bloomed or that have ripened yet, and I will. And I have cucumbers back there and green beans that I can see on the bush. I'll pick those young. And the other thing that you wouldn't have seen in the previous video is this, and that's the star jasmine that's growing on the lattice wall that I put between our patio and this, our utility area and garage. And it's in full bloom now. What would I cut back here? I would cut back this space right here so that I can go in and go out, especially in a few weeks, because what is glorious about flowers, at least these flowers, is this gorgeous white, clean white that's, well, semi-clean because it's starting to fade. And the fragrance of star jasmine is just wonderful. But when all of these flowers fade, we're going to get this brown, the browning flowers that will start to drop off. And when I go in and out of this entrance, those things start falling on my hair. And my hair is naturally curly and sort of gets caught in there. So it needs to be cut back diligently. You can see it's in bloom here, and you can see that the garden is so full. Things to do, like pulling out this calla lily there, and cutting back a little on this because it's getting heavy and starting to fall forward on this fuchsia gardenmeister. If I take some of the forward branches off, I'm reducing this weight. I'm bringing you right into the bush with me, aren't I? But I'm reducing the weight so it won't fall forward so far. It will keep blooming better. And this is going to look a little empty right now, but let's see if I can do it and not have it look too bare. If I cut the underneath branches and leave the upper ones, that kind of hides that emptiness. Okay. Finish, 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 finish. And I think I'll take this one right here. Okay. So what's happened is it looks empty there, but it now is getting sun in these areas, and these will all bloom and fill in. When I began gardening with my current husband, my late husband passed away, 13 years ago, and I did remarry. He would see what I do in gardens like this, and he'd say, "You're butchering them." Now he says, "Oh, you're rejuvenating the garden," and that's the difference. That's exactly what happens. Okay, this was my big, I'm going to call it eyesore. Isn't this gorgeous? These alstroemeria that come up, they spread by rhizome. They come up every year. My most prized are these gold ones. They're relatively rare as opposed to the coral or the pink, which you see over there. But they grow forward toward the sun. They are fine in dappled shade, but there's just too much of them. And you don't cut the heads off and leave the stems to rebloom or renourish. It doesn't work that way with them. The only way that you can work with alstroemeria to cut them back is to pull them. I'm carefully pulling them out of their base, meaning I'll just say the rhizome parts of them. Some of them are going to break while I'm doing this because they're narrow and they're small, but a lot of them are large enough for me to do what I'm doing right now. And I'll show you why I'm being a little bit careful with them. They're still in gorgeous bloom. And it's a waste to throw them all away. Now this is what not being in bloom is. This is what, excuse me, what being in bloom is. So I'm going to save those. I'll just take a couple more. I can finish this later, and then I'll show you what I'm going to do. I will line up all the heads, and some of the heads are going forward, some of them droop down, and that's okay. And I'll line up the heads. And if you're thinking, well, I don't have alstroemeria, I don't care, think of some other plant that has, I'll say, gone beyond its usefulness in its place that may, and see, this is a spent head, that may give you the same opportunity. And what opportunity am I talking about? Just to fill a vase, even for a few days, because people pay hundreds of dollars for vases of flowers. This one's a spent one. I got a Mother's Day bouquet from my son that I know was well over $100. Thank you, Eric and Dina. And I loved it, but we can have vases of flowers all the time if we utilize what we have in our garden. So let me pull just a couple more that are looking kind of full. And then I'll say, you've got the idea. What's going to happen as I continue to do this, because I will when we're off camera, is that I'm going to reduce the forward growth. And you see what just happened? By reducing the forward growth, I've uncovered the roses that are blooming here. See how pretty that is? And so I want to give a little bit more airspace to them, because the alstroemeria now have spread to the degree that they'll just come up anywhere, as they are on my hedge. But my hedge survives it. Okay, so I have my flowers, and I'm simply going to cut the stems. Again, you don't cut the heads of alstroemeria the way you do with roses. And you're going to have plants in your garden that you understand the idiosyncrasies of. Things that you realize are different than a lot of standard shrubs, or in this case, flowers. I brought a vase out earlier. I'll move over. Oh, I should show you this. I bought a couple of pots. Oops, that was soil. Okay. I brought a couple of pots at a local store. These are a kind of sedum. And I bought a couple of pots. They were about to go into bloom. They have gone into bloom. I can revive this entire collection. There's 2 of them. And just cut off these heads. Let them stand as a pretty green, simple succulent. I'll just do this one in at this point. Put them back in, and they're going to bloom again. They'll bloom again and again and again, and be an ongoing, of ongoing value. Okay. I'll do that later. I want to show you what I did down here. I put in a couple of inverted strawberry boxes, and I water them from time to time, but they are a water-wise plant. And I have a pretty little container with a plant in it that I've had in there now 3 months, and will have ongoing. So I'll clean that up and clean that up and enjoy my alstroemeria in a vase, indoors or out. If I had cut them shorter, I think I'm going to do that. And then I'll give you a better idea of how pretty they can look. Get yourself a good pair of cutters. These are Corona brand. There are a number of good brands. There. All right. Okay, job done. And I can leave these here on my table, or I can bring them indoors. They'll last, about 4 or 5 days. They start dropping leaves that some people think are kind of messy. Not leaves, but flower blossoms. But I think they're worth it. A lot of vases have them in it. You can see the little mess that I've made. So I'll go through my garden, and anything that has gotten too big, for example, this Milianthus is coming too far forward, I would cut this entire branch back. You'll think, oh my gosh, talk about butchering, to create a lighter front and a stronger plant. All right, and that's looking okay. So this is what's done. Walk through my garden, look for things that need some help. Having been gone, some things simply got too big. Well, including my nasturtiums. I can just take whole bits of the nasturtium branch, and I'll remind you that these nasturtium flowers, way back here, there we go. I'll remind you that these nasturtium flowers, every one of them, and I will take them and pick them, are edible. They taste like radish. I think that's it. More of the star jasmine blooming later than on the fence because they are in the shade. Okay, I think that's it. I hope you found this interesting in some way and applicable in some way in your own garden. Look at the mess I've made, and that's what happens. Have a great day. I know I'm going to, and stay tuned for other garden lessons. Bye-bye.